The first AI-based RPA tool is here. It's called Aura, and they're sponsoring this session. They're sponsoring the I Love Automation Discord community, where the town hall will begin in 30 seconds. Before we go there, if you want to join the community yourself, follow the link up here. We are more than 7,000 RPA developers networking and helping each other. It's of course free. Now let's join the Aura session and see what they got for us.
Well, hi everyone, it's great to be here. I'm Chris, the CEO and CTO at Cognillo. I'm here with Bashak, solution expert, and Isai should maybe joining as well to help with the chat and any questions anyone may post. So thanks everyone, we're excited to be here. I'm going to show you a quick demo of Aura, which is a new RPA tool we've developed that's based on artificial intelligence, computer vision. And so what you see here is Aura Desktop, which once you install, it'll have two components, and you can see Anders' video for how it's installed. So the first thing is you can click New Workflow, and then I'm going to call this I Love Automation Example 1. I'll say simple. And so with Aura, you can use the command wizard here to add tasks. So I'm going to go to this website and show apologies. I'm going to do this one. We're just going to enter in some values into these boxes. And if we change the value, you'll notice that it refreshes. So the first thing is we can go add command. I'm going to go open application. I'm going to tell it open a website. I'm going to paste the URL here. Hit add. Okay, and you'll see it adds a command there that's going to telling it navigate to.
Chris, I love this.
Yes.
I love this simplicity of the tool that is just one line, no big box with a lot of parameters in. Now we opening up that web page, but that's not the beauty of Aura. I will say, not that it is not that great, but the beauty comes now.
Yep. So there's no need for selectors or anything. It uses computer vision behind the screen to understand where all the controls are on every page and window, including virtual machines and Citrix. So we'll show you a bit later about how it works behind the scenes, but I'm just going to show you how you kind of use it. So the next is we're going to enter into a text box. And sorry, I should have left that open. And that would have been starting amount. So we're going to enter a value into starting amount. So the name of the label is starting amount. And then we'll enter 3,500, let's say. And then I'm going to tell it press enter. Just press enter. So you can use the wizard. You could also type. So just due to time, I'm just going to paste the rest of the commands, but you would, add each command in. I'll close this, but there's other options in here, selecting from a combo box, clicking a hyperlink.
What would an experienced Aura developer do? Would they type in, or would they use the predefined code blocks in add command?
So they would usually, the experts would type, copy paste, and they would probably be familiar. They would be familiar with this because it's a lot faster, right? So if I had one of these, I could just copy it, email it to a colleague. They could paste it and share. We could have predefined one behind the scenes. These are really like text files that they're stored. There's a way you can encrypt credentials and things like that. We have different methods to encrypt credentials, but most people will type once they get familiar with the syntax. And there's a lot of powerful syntax that can be used to, for an RPA consultant to make it more better performance and faster.
And
so what it's going to do.
And if people didn't see it, Chris, you said that entered 3,508, I believe, and then you said as starting amount. And that starting amount, that is just the label of the text box. That's the only thing you need with Aura. You don't need any selectors at all. That's
Right. Yep.
That blew my mind quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people will be used to, having to pick the box and then modify selector possibly, and with drop downs and things like that. But with Aura, you do not have to. So it's going to enter in the value, select this for the combo box. I'm going to tell it to wait a second while it refreshes. And then we're going to get a value, which would be this on the screen. Okay, so I'm just going to close it. I can hit save. Okay, and then let me start it. Choose monthly for additional contribution, and then enter rated as return. And then it'll just get the value here. Okay.
Very nice,
Mhm.
Chris. And so the first part, that sounds really, really intuitive. That looks really, really intuitive. We just have to mention the actual label of the box or button or drop down that we want to interact with, and then we want to give it a value. What was the last part doing?
So this part is actually not needed, but if the text box is to the right or to the left and it's not finding it correctly, you can specify it like this. There's also parameters. So let's say enter, and then I'll go over what the bottom part is for. So if I'm entering into a text box, there's advanced here. And so if the text box is to the right, usually you can leave any and not have to put this. But if for some reason it's to the right, you can specify it. So there's some options you can use to give it a bit more information on how to find the controls if it's needed. Down here, this is going to get a value from this text. And since it's a sentence, it's all together. So I'm going to get a value from this sentence, and there's a word to the right of it that I want. So that's what that is. And this syntax, we have it in the user guide, and we have help up here that goes over syntax, also in the add command for getting a value. It's here, what you can put in the parameters if you need to learn the syntax. And then again, there's some options here, like the values to the right. And basically this stores a variable called worth from what it's collecting. If I go to variable panel, it'll show up here as well. When it was running, or if I put a pause. I can show one more example, and so I'll click here.
And again, I will repeat, if you have any questions out there to the tool, I have like 1,000 questions because I'm so excited. But if you have any questions out there, please just give them in the chat and we will make sure to answer each one of you. Skill to Captain says hello and welcome. And again, we should mention that you can actually download a free community version of Aura from Cognillo.com. There's a link in the chat to both the free community version, and there's also a link to my beginner's guide that I created this week. That'll be a 50-minute beginner's guide to Aura, how you set everything up, how you download, how you get started, how you create your first lines of code, and how you solve the RPA challenge, do PDF processing as well. Sorry, Chris, back to you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just putting in some commands here. I'll show you that you can drag and drop as well. So before I use this button, but once you get more familiar, you can go here and then drag and drop. And so I'm going to tell it, go to this website and then scroll down about 4 times. And we're going to grab the data from this data table. And I'll show you how easy it is with Aura. So there's a command called get data tables.
So now we are web scraping structured data. Sorry, I was
Data
muted.
tables. Yep, and then we can do a pause. So what this is going to do is just going to go to this page, scroll down, and then get the data tables.
So you're literally just
And
writing
then,
it out like we want to navigate there, scroll there, get that data tables, and then pause. That's all you did here. You didn't. There's no backside code that you're hitting here. This is all we need. These 4 lines, right?
yes, yeah, exactly, yep. So the user would be able to, would not need to, oops, let's see, would not need to write any code. Like this is, just these commands. It's using machine learning in the background, which will show you a little bit more how that works after. But as you can see, it paused here, and then we can inspect. So Aura creates auto-generated variables. Okay, and there's different methods it uses. So I could expand this a bit more. There's also an inspector window that'll make this a big full screen. But it will get these data tables, and to see them, I can choose this drop down. So it uses machine learning with different services, Base64 and Azure Form Recognizer, but it'll only be able to see what's on the screen. So we also have auto-generated tables that Aura pulls up, which you can see here. It'll auto-generate this table. So I could loop through it with a loop, like for each row in data table. So I could even type it for each row in, and then this is called table. So I can copy that. Show message box, and then I could tell it date is, and then I could put a pause, and you'll see that it will auto-generate variables for each row that it's iterating. So with Aura, you'll use a pause a lot to add breaks to just as you're building it. So I'll do it really quick in Aura.
Do we need both the Do we
Now
need
I'm
both
going to
the
scroll
breaks here?
down.
Do we need both the breaks here, Chris? That both the pause and the message box?
So the pause is just for us to see what Aura's captured. The pause, the message box you can use, but right now I don't know what the variable name is. So when I go here, I can tell it I only want to find out from the table. So the source is, what it's getting from this table. And so these are the columns. So housing for the first one is 67.4. The state is Mississippi. So it's auto-generating these values. So I can say housing for and what that's doing is it's saying the housing for state, which is this variable, so also Mississippi is 67.4. So I can remove this pause.
What's the
And
difference between a variable with a dollar sign and a variable with a dollar sign underscore?
oh, good question. Yep. So the $underscore are auto-generated by Aura, so you don't have to create these. And then the one with just a simple dollar sign is a user-defined variable name. So I could create my own variables with dollar sign, website equals, and then this could have been, so I would put it like this, and then I would tell it, and it's of course good practice to try to use variables where needed, so it's easy to change them, so you can put them all at the top. But yeah, just use it like that. So let me cancel this and then we'll run it. And I'm gonna
And then we actually have,
cancel it while it's running.
and we will watch Chris, and then we have a lot of questions, nice questions towards Aura, and I think a few of the people have actually tried Aura the last days. So are you ready for those after this one?
The question? Sure. Yep.
Cool. Oh yeah. So that's it. That's how
So,
easy you grabbed the Mississippi and then the index of that, and of course all the other ones.
yeah. So I'm gonna try to cancel this.
Great.
And yep, so I just canceled that. And then the last thing is what we can do. I'm just gonna copy from here. So we know that we want table 1, and we're just assigning it a new name. This is just showing that I can assign a variable to rename it. So this is the auto-generated table, and we're going to tell it, okay, I'm going to switch to use that table and then filter that data table. Okay, so using, assigning like variables could be, it takes a little bit of learning to understand how variables work, but for most business users, it shouldn't be too hard to grasp. And then this is just saying, I'm going to get a new value, which will be from all results, which is this table, okay? And we're gonna filter it where grocery value is less than 95. And then I have another variable I'm creating, and that's gonna be, again, using this table, and it's gonna filter where housing is less than 70. And then down here, we'll have a pause and I'll show you this result. And then we have this special command. It's called add result, and what that does is anything that you want to send back to yourself or the user, it'll send these to the user into what's called a result package, and then this tells it send the results to the Aura desktop. There's other ways you can send it to a file or a folder path on your computer, but let me run it and then you can kind of see what it's doing. Okay, and then I'll switch over to Pashak and we can show how it's working behind the scenes.
Great. Could we have 1 minute questions, just 2 fast ones, and then we will leave the last ones to the end.
Okay, so it's extracting the data tables, then it's gonna filter and show up, and then have a pause, and I'll show you what the variables look like.
Looks really nice, Chris.
Thanks. Yep, so here's the auto-generated variables, and again, we're gonna look at the data tables. So we have one all results. That's really just a copy of table 1. And then groceries less than 95. So these are just filtered, so you can add the pause again, just to kind of see what it's doing, make sure that the results are what you want. Okay, so that looks good. So you can cancel, or I could actually just resumed. Should have just resumed. Let's do it again, sorry. I should have probably just resumed that and then it would have added the results, but we'll run it to the end and then I'll show you what it creates. So basically it's gonna scrape this data and then send me the results. Okay, you can also have it send to email. That's another option. There's send to desktop, which is what we used, but there's also send to email or send to a folder, and you can put the path Okay, so this one sent to desktop will send the results back to me, and there'll be this button here, open results. And so Aura will automatically create these for you from the data table. So I've got all results.
Wow.
Then I've got
Wow.
groceries filtered. Okay, so this could be emailed or, and there's different things you can do where you can send the results back to the user. It could also be as PDF if you needed it in that format, the tables. But okay. And before I send to Bashak, I'll show you how it's really quickly behind the scenes. For this example, it's using artificial intelligence to detect where the controls are. So from the BMI, you can see it's detecting where the address bar is, select where our combo box is, labels, and buttons. Okay, so instead of using selectors, it uses computer vision to find where things are. And then Bashak has a few other examples as well.
And
Okay.
we have a few questions as well from the viewers. So I think we will take like 2 or 3 questions now. Then we will move over to Basak, and then we will take the rest of the questions. So Rayat says, how will it work if the labels are in different languages for different users? For example, I programmed the bot with English labels, but other user has German labels.
So if the labels are different, you would need a separate automation, or you could use variables. So you could create a file. Like with Aura, you can also create one for, let's say, language map. Let's say, I don't know, I'll call it language map 1. So I can call this first name. Let's say that's English, and then that's first name. So you would need to do something like this for each of the labels because the tool uses the name on the screen to find it. So if it's in a different language, you would put the different syntax here for whatever other language it is for each of the labels. Then from your automations, so if you have, let's say, 5 automations for the same application, I could save that. And then let's say this would have been last name as an example. Then over here, let me copy this. So you'd right click and you go copy path, and then to import or run, so I can tell it run, it's also in the add command wizard, I'll show you. So it's called reuse, import and reuse. So I copied the path to that map, that language thing. And so this is the command that you'd run. And then that will import all those field names from the different language. Okay, you can also use this to run other automations, like to run, sub automations or tasks. Yep.
Great.
But in this case, yeah, this is just importing.
Thank you, Chris and Rayat. I hope that was answer enough. Thank you, Chris. The last question before we move to Basak, and then we will take the questions afterwards in a block there. That is Ricky Chicks. He says, or he or she says, this looks amazing. That's to you, Basak and Chris. 2 questions. What language
Thank you.
is it called for the commands?
The language we don't officially have a name for the language. Right now, the file extension is .rpa for these files. If anyone has any suggestions on a name, we're open to it because we haven't had an actual name, but the product name is Aura. And behind the scenes, the file extensions, it's just .rpa, but you can open this in Visual Studio Code. You could open it with Notepad. to share, so it's quite portable. And then so for testing, if a customer of yours has any issues, it's very portable. I can copy paste and make quick corrections from my phone even, and send back to them. Yeah.
Nice.
But we don't officially have a name. Yeah.
Nice. And if you out there have a name for this programming language, there will be a Cognillo coffee cup for you if they choose that name. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tix, we have the last question from there, and then we will continue with the questions after Basak. It says, which task would this RPA software, that is Aura, be better at than the alternative, or is it a better user experience overall? Do you understand the question?
I'd say, yeah. So from what I understand, you mean the advantages, I think, right, of this product over other tools on the market. It sounds like. So I would say, for citizen developers, this would be easier to use. Also, the development time should be much quicker without having to use selectors for current automation. So building an automation should be, from feedback from many consultants that we've worked with and have been helping us develop this, it's faster to develop, and in many cases also less prone to breaking, because it's using computer vision at runtime. If if a control was moved, the Aura will pick up even though the DOM changed. So even if the name, if this got moved, height was down here, or they added a new field, the application got updated, it will still pick it up where it is, instead of having to rewrite all of your selectors that if they change structure. Okay.
Great.
That would be a big one.
Great, thank you, Chris. And we have a lot of other questions, so we will see if we can manage all of them after Basak. So I think it's over to you, Basak. Is that right, Chris?
Yes. So she's just going to show a few other examples on her screen. And let me stop sharing. Okay.
Great. And thanks, Chris, for being here. And actually, Chris and Basak and Aura, those are sponsoring our community here. So let's give them an applause. That is very much... that makes us happy, Chris, that you want to sponsor our community.
We are really excited with meeting your community, actually. I want to show quickly how the Aura is working behind the scenes, because the Aura is training the tens of thousands computer software vision. Like here, when we are want to do something at the
Basak, I think we're seeing the wrong screen.
Oh.
Or maybe it's Paul.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I think reshare, okay. Basak, you might have to scroll down, to find the right screen.
Is it okay?
We see.
No, that's the same.
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
you can.
Yeah,
oh yeah, there we go.
Sorry, that was me, Basak. Sorry, it was me.
No, it's totally okay.
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 Yeah. So.
Okay. When we are trying to, for example, doing something at the Zillow.com, when we are navigate to the Aura taking the screenshots, and this is the where the magic is happening actually. It's taking all of this button or text boxes you can see in here too, as the Chris showed actually. So Aura is, for example, this is the label. And when you are writing the label name for click or typing, it's directly moving to this text box. So you don't need to handle with the selectors or other things actually. Like here, when you're trying to work with the Google form or the website, it's no matter which the website or which the software you are using actually, because for you the Aura is training already tens of thousands computer software, so it's working virtually. So I found it really user friendly. That's all I want to show actually.
That's great. Thank
Thanks,
you, Basak. And Chris, I'm not sure how much time you got, but there's plenty of interest in Aura, so you just have to say when you don't want to answer more questions, because these are all great. So I'll just pick from the start, and then we will see how that goes.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Happy to answer.
Michelle R says, how does Aura deal with pop-ups, i.e. password reset alerts, system maintenance alerts, etc.? Curious if you can ignore them.
So yeah, that's a good question. So we've tested it with like Windows UAC prompts, as well as prompts that, so you may be in a web browser to log in, but you'll get a Windows prompt, for example, right? And even a security prompt that could be from an emulator for Android or something that, you know, normally you won't be able to obtain the DOM or the selectors for those. So because it's using machine learning for that pop-up, it'll actually be able to click like you would. It won't, you know, it's a security, you know, in a lot of cases, these pop-ups are security prompts, so there's no way to ignore them. If you have like a Windows security prompt, it's, you know, it's there for a reason to, you will have to, you know, escape out of it. So Aura, because it uses computer vision, it doesn't need to, you don't need to tell it, you know, use Selenium or use, you know, find this window. It's gonna find it because it's using computer vision, regardless of, you know, if it's a UAC prompt or not. So you would just tell it, you know, click OK, or if it's a UAC prompt, you can tell Aura, you know, if this exists on the page. So there's a way to check if certain text is on the page. So you can say, if, you know, this Windows security prompt text exists, then type this for username, type this encrypted value for password, and then click OK, and then that will get rid of the prompt. But you won't need to specially handle UAC, you know, these type of prompts. Yeah.
Great question,
It'll work like
Michelle.
anything else.
Great question, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Celeste says, link to the Aura community version. We posted that in the chat, both Isa and I, so that one is there. Then Nordine VDZ says, since it's using computer vision, does this mean that only the visible part of the table is captured until New Mexico? That was related to your example, Chris.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Since Aura is using computer vision, does this mean that only the visible part of the table is captured until New Mexico? We scrape the table.
I see. Yep. So if you're using OCR, so I could show it again, but basically no, it's using different methods. Okay, so the tool uses machine learning, and also it uses scraping behind the scenes, but you won't need to manually scrape. It's auto detecting the table using like still using the DOM. So we've got different layers. We've got HTML kind of scraping, okay, using Selenium and different ways we're doing it to generate these tables. So if the table is off the screen, then you can use, you know, the appropriate table, like what I did. So the table that I used in the example, and if you download Aura, you'll see this example under data tables or web applications example folder. So the example I showed you is in there in the download, and then the table that's in that example and the one that I showed actually has all the rows, even the ones that are off the screen.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And I can recommend, I have shared Aura here on my screen. I can recommend using these examples here. There's an example folder where you can see all of these examples that will get you started very, very quickly. Then Bear Killer, that might be a support issue. He says, I did not get an email license. Should I expect one after joining the community? I think you get a key from Aura when you join. That will be in your email. If not, I believe you should contact support. Is that right, Chris?
Yes. So normally when you click to download the community edition, it's free, or any of the trial versions, then you should get an email that's sent to you to verify your email. And then once you click on it, it should generate the key. But if you did not receive it, it could have been blocked. Maybe check your spam folder. But if you have not, then just email support@cognillo.com. We're looking out for anyone with any issues with activating Aura right now, because it's our new launch, new product. So email support@cognillo.com and we'll get a license key sent out to you right away.
Great, thank you, Chris, and I hope you can get started today, Bear Killer, because this is very exciting. Then Timboy says, how does Aura work with dynamic web forms?
So with other web forms that are dynamic, so if they're using some modern Ajax or something where it may be loading combo boxes and behind the scenes, we've tested with those, and again, because it's using machine learning, it's based visually as opposed to trying to find things from the DOM. So because it's not having to find, so for example, a dynamic loading combo box, it's difficult to work with. Sometimes you have to get the correct XPath and kind of investigate and find out where it is. So it's using machine learning, and so it should work the same as a standard non-dynamic website. Yeah.
Great.
If you have any specific examples, then you can let me know. Yeah. But
thank you. And Bryophyte says .rpa, nice. And Bear Killer says, thanks, this is a game changer. So and Michelle R says, selectors are my nemesis in health caps. Love this. So yeah, all kudos to Basak, Chris, and Isai. We have the last question. That is a fairly longer one. So Chris, I hope you listen closely now. Nico says, how does updating, maintaining automations work in an industrialized setting? Let's say I have a process with thousands of transactions that require multiple unattended machines to handle the workload. If any updates are needed to the automation, is it enough to update a single automation file, or would all changes need to be duplicated for each machine?
Oh, that's a good question. So we've got something that we didn't demonstrate yet that's called this concept of drones. Okay, so you'll just need one workflow, and then it'll be executed similar to how I showed, but it can be so for each transaction, for example, it'll create a new transaction item, and the drones, which are like workers, will report to or collect tasks from the primary drone or primary worker. Okay, so one worker can be kind of like a primary, and then other workers that you install on virtual machines will become, you can turn them into drones. There's an option, and then those drones all point to that worker to pull those transactions, and so that primary will store that one workflow, that you can just modify that one workflow so you don't have multiple copies yet.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for the great question, Nico. This was the last question, and thanks, Basak, Chris, and Isai for going over time, because we have all these great questions. It was very nice to see the tool in action, and I know you come back to show us even more.
Oh, yep. So stay tuned. We've got other videos coming out, and Anders is just started with the first one. So
great.
Other great videos to show what it can do. Yep.
Yeah, thanks again for taking your time, and thanks to all of you out there watching and commenting, questioning, and showing interest in the tool. We have a few threads around Aura, and if you have any technical things, you can either use the support or post it here in the community. I'm sure we can help each other around this tool, so we'll create a few threads and help each other with the solutions. And maybe we can get Basak or Chris to check in once a week or something.
Will do.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Great to meet you all. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to learn Aura, I created this beginner's guide. And if you want to join our community, you can find your invitation and guide right here.